Hello, class, and welcome to our presentation, The Human Condition in the Upanishads. So in the previous lecture, we learned that according to the Chandogya Upanishad, all that exists is Brahman, an eternal spiritual life force that gives rise to all living beings. And we also learned that the material world is an illusion, which the gurus call Maya. Now, this is interesting and all, but how is this theology relevant to human life? Well, it is very relevant. Ultimately, understanding that all is Brahman is key to human salvation. How so? Well, to answer this question, we must first understand a few fundamental ideas regarding human existence in the Chandogya Upanishad. So here we go. So point one. According to the Chandogya Upanishad, all living things arise from Brahman. Brahman is the source of all living things. And this is because all living things have a soul or life force called Atman. And all souls or spirits, these Atman, derive from the Great Spirit or Brahman. So to cite the guru Uddalaka, Brahman is the vast sea that gives rise to various rivers or Atman. So all Atman derive from the same source, Brahman. And to cite Uddalaka again, all rivers flowing east and west rise from the sea, return to the sea, become the sea itself. Meaning, all Atman arise from Brahman and eventually return to Brahman and become Brahman itself. So just as rivers rise from the sea, spend a little time on land, and return to the sea, so too do Atman rise from Brahman, spend some time in this earthly life, only to return to Brahman again. So when we are born into the world of Maya, the Atman is trapped within the illusory world. And upon death, the Atman should naturally return to the source, or the sea, Brahman. That is, point two, the Atman desires moksha, or release, from the world of Maya. So subconsciously, the Atman wishes to be released from Maya, from the illusion, so to return to Brahman. However, upon death, most Atman remain in the world of Maya. They are like rivers that refuse to return to the sea. Okay, why do they refuse to return to the sea? Well, this brings us to point three. The human life is plagued by ignorance and attachment to Maya, which is considered bad karma or bad actions. That is, as we mentioned in the previous slideshow, most humans are unaware of Brahman's existence, and therefore they believe Maya to be the real world. So upon death, the Atman is almost deluded. The Atman does not want to leave the world of Maya. It thinks it's real. And therefore, when the body dies, the Atman goes in search of another body and attaches itself to that body. That is, we become attached to earthly life, and therefore the Atman refuses to experience moksha. And this brings us to our last point. As a result, the Atman is reborn into another body, and we experience samsara, or reincarnation. So, the Atman, its natural place is to return to Brahman, but it refuses to do so because it's attached to the world of Maya, and therefore experiences reincarnation. But here's an issue. So what? Perhaps living again is good. I mean, what's the big deal? I mean, maybe I want to be reincarnated. This way I will always live and never die. But for the gurus of the Upanishads, reincarnation is not a good thing. Why? Because after the Atman experiences several rebirths, it becomes weary of the constant cycle of birth, old age, death, and rebirth. And it wishes at some point just to attain its freedom from this cyclical existence. Make sense? Well, let us consider the following example. Imagine that you go to a carnival. Looks like fun, right? And let's say that one of the carnies, right, one of the people who runs the rides, tells you that if you pay $5, you can ride on the Ferris wheel for as many times as you like, even for the rest of your life if you want. Now, the first few cycles around the Ferris wheel might be fun, but after a while, let's say if you go around 100 times, chances are you're going to become weary of the ride and you're going to want to get off. Well, for the guru, samsara, or the life of cyclical existence, functions much like the Ferris wheel. The first few cycles of life may seem fulfilling, but over time the Atman just wants to get off this Ferris wheel of existence. So, in conclusion, in the Chandogya Upanishad, all living things, including humans, have a soul or Atman. All Atman derive from the eternal soul, Brahman. And all Atman, because they arise from Brahman, they're destined to return to Brahman. But most Atman are reborn into Maya because the Atman reattaches itself to the world and thus experiences samsara, or cyclical existence. But ultimately, and this is important, the goal of life according to the Chandogya Upanishad is for the Atman to experience moksha, or release from samsara, and to achieve eternal unity with Brahman. But how does an individual experience moksha? Well, this issue will be briefly discussed in the next lecture.